Good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council vote for the Committee on Contracts. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. No one may approach the dais at any time. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Good morning and welcome to this meeting of New York City's Council Committee on Contracts. Today is December 4th, 2025. My name is Julie Wan and I have the privilege of chairing this committee. Before we begin, I would like to recognize my fellow committee members, Ina Vernikoff, as well as Althea Stevens. And at today's hearing, the committee will consider two procurement reform measures. First, whether to recommend the override of the mayor's veto of introduction number 1248B in relation to an Office of Contract Services, as well as whether to recommend that the mayor's veto message M01932025 be filed, and second, proposed introduction 1392A in relation to quarterly payments to vendors under certain contracts within the Department of Homeless Services and the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, and to establish a pilot for quarterly payments to vendors under contracts with other agencies. Introduction 1248B, sponsored by the Council Speaker Adrian Adams, addresses a critical challenge: the lack of clear authority and accountability in a procurement system. While the Mayor's Office of Contract Services currently exists, its powers and responsibilities are not codified in the city charter. This bill formally establishes MOCs in the charter with enumerated powers and duties, creating a clear legal framework for procurement oversight. MOCs will have explicit authority to coordinate agency procurement, delegate certain functions to agency contracting officers, and conduct contracting audits. Proposed introduction 1392A, also sponsored by Speaker Adams, takes the next critical step in procurement reform by addressing the payment delays that have forced nonprofits to wait for months or even years while waiting for reimbursement from the city. This bill establishes quarterly payments programs for DHS and MOCJ contracts and creates a pilot program to test expanding this approach to other large city contracts in order to ensure timely payment for city vendors. Beginning July 1st, 2027, contractors with DHS temporary housing, street outreach, and low barrier beds contracts, as well as city-funded MOCJ contracts, will receive quarterly payments of at least 25% of their annual contract value at the start of each quarter. This means organizations serving homeless New Yorkers, crime victims, and justice-involved individuals will have predictable cash flow to focus on their mission instead of scrambling to make payroll. The bill will also establish a pilot program beginning July 1st, 2029 for other contracts over $1 million, allowing MOCs to test quarterly payments more broadly and to develop best practices before potentially expanding quarterly advance payments citywide. These two bills are part of a comprehensive reform package that emerged from Speaker Adams' 2025 State of the City address to focus on the chronic payment delays that have plagued nonprofit services providers for years. These delays have resulted in devastating consequences: layoffs of critical staff, reduction or elimination of services, accumulation of unsustainable debt, and in some cases, the permanent closure of long-time organizations providing critical services to the New Yorkers who need them the most. When we held our oversight hearing on these bills, we heard testimony from dozens of nonprofit advocates that the urgent need for procurement reform. The numbers tell a stark story. In fiscal year 2024, over 90% of nonprofit contracts were registered late, meaning providers had already begun work before the city finalized payment. Some providers wait months or even years for reimbursement, forcing them to take expensive loans just to keep their doors open. This is not a bureaucratic problem, it's a moral failing that undermines the nonprofits serving our most vulnerable New Yorkers. Introduction 1248B was carefully crafted through extensive negotiations. The bill includes important safeguards explicitly preserving mayoral authority and ensuring nothing alters the authority of other procurement-related entities like the Procurement Policy Board and Franchise and Concession Review Committee. The bill creates lines of accountability while maintaining the flexibility the moral administration needs to manage procurement operations. Similarly proposed Introduction 1392A was developed through carefully negotiated negotiations to ensure quarterly advance payments can be implemented effectively while protecting the city contractors that desperately need the lifeline they provide. The bill includes strong safeguards like OMB oversight of any payment deferrals and annual reporting requirements so the City Council can monitor implementation and make improvements as needed. The mayor's veto of Introduction 1248B disregards overwhelming evidence of the existing procurement system's failure and the urgent need for reform documented by this council. His claim in his veto letter that no need for this entity to be identified ignores the testimony of dozens of nonprofits, the documented crisis of late contracts legislation, and his own administration's 33% budget cut to MOCs that eliminated 14 critical positions. It is absurd that this mayor claims to care about nonprofit stability and effective city operations while vetoing a bill that would provide the very tools needed to address the chronic dysfunction in our contracting system. The nonprofits that serve our most vulnerable neighbors deserve a procurement system that works. City agencies must be held accountable for timely contract registration and payment processing. This legislation provides the authority, accountability, and perhaps most importantly, the permanence that executive orders simply cannot deliver. I want to thank Speaker Adams for her continued leadership on this issue and sponsoring this legislation. I want to thank Contracts Committee Senior Legislative Counsel Alex Polinoff, Policy Analyst Alex Yablon, Financial Analyst Owen Katowski for their hard work on both of these bills. Before Speaker is not here to speak, we will now be voting on the following items. First, shall we accept and file the mayor's veto message, and shall we pass Introduction 1248B, the mayor's veto message notwithstanding? Second, shall we pass proposed Introduction 1392A, and I'll ask the clerk for a roll call.
Thank you. Good morning, William Martin, Committee Clerk. Roll call vote, Committee on Contracts. All items are coupled. Chair 1.
Aye.
Botcher. Nurse. Stevens.
Aye.
Vernikov.
Aye.
With a vote of 3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, all items have been approved as described by the chair.
We're going to hold
And
it
the
open
roll will be
for-
held open at request of the chair.
Thank you.